for your grace, Lord, for keeping me safe. And I can share the good news of a Savior. Give someone a reason just to tell you thanks. Oh, Lord, thank you.
All right. All right. And good day, everyone. And welcome to today's session for Truly Foundation and A Course in Miracles. Greetings. My name is Oliver, and I am your temporary guide, your temporary host, your coach on this journey of transformation that we have embarked on way back on January 10th at the beginning of this year. And here we are, 220 lessons later, exiting one part of this, the part one of the workbook lessons, and we are embarking on the second part of these workbook lessons out of A Course in Miracles. And so before we got started on part two, I thought I would try to kind of bridge the gap between what our original objectives were in terms of what part one was about, and talk about how we accomplished that, and to talk about part two of the workbook lesson and the remaining lessons that we are going to look upon, and just bridge those two objectives together. And I'm just so happy, so delighted that we have reached this point. I took the opportunity to go back and listen to the first workbook lesson that occurred on January 10th of 2020, when it was just my goal to kind of lead this group through this experiment. And I never intended creating a commentary, a video recording commentary of each and every lesson. But as we got into this project, it was quite apparent that the participants felt like having the commentary helped them to gain understanding of what the lesson was conveying, and it just made for a more interesting way of going through the workbook lessons in A Course in Miracles, especially because this particular group had not been acquainted with this path and this process. And so I agreed, and here we are now 220 lessons later, and we've recorded probably over 240 recordings for part one of this workbook lessons. And so I'm just kind of delighted that we done that. And I was I was okay with doing the recordings, and now we've accumulated 240 plus recordings uh, with commentary on each one of the lessons, and I think that that's going to be helpful not only to those of us that are going through it now, but for those in the future who may want to take this journey. The recordings are already there for their support. I took the liberty to go back and look at the first video for the first lesson on yesterday. It was kind of comical to me because, again, this was the first time that I embarked on adding commentary to each lesson. And so to see where we started and see where we are now and what we've actually accumulated is almost like it's miraculous. It's almost like it's a miracle, A Course in Miracles. And it was always my goal to, number one, make this tool available to those that were interested in growth, renewal, transformation, advancing their awareness and understanding of spirituality. Those who were interested in strengthening their relationship with themselves, with others, and with their creator or their God or their whatever you espouse your higher ultimate higher being to be. And this path is for you. It's actually for anyone who chooses to engage in it. And it has been a tremendous benefit in my life. It's been one of the turning points in my life. I have explained before that, I came from a background of and a history of fear. I came from a history of not knowing the self. This was my history. This was my condition. But I came from a space of where I had this desire to know the truth. And during that transition, during that period, eventually the Course in Miracles was introduced to me, and it resonated with me, and it became this very useful tool for me to help me to gain understanding of my true self, my true identity, to get a expanded awareness of the questions that I had internal of who and what and why and where. And after being involved with this spiritual document for over 18 years, it is still a vital part of my life. Like I explained before, I was brought up in a Christian background, and the God of my understanding had certain traditions that I have come to know now that were not in my best interest to be a part of my belief system. And but I took full responsibility for myself when I got to a certain point in my life. Just like I think all of us are responsible for our own spirituality. We shouldn't depend on a teacher. We shouldn't depend on any type of anyone else. We should not give sole responsibility to someone else for our spiritual growth and development. Sure, we're given governors and tutors and teachers when we are young and immature and not quite ready to take responsibility for certain things. But once we become of age, it is our responsibility for our well-being. It's your responsibility. It's mine for your personal well-being. So your belief system, your outlook, your exposure, your freedom to choose, your freedom to accept or reject ideas when you get to a certain age of understanding, you need to exercise. We should exercise that, because what? Ultimately, we're responsible for our life. Ultimately, thank God for those that are placed in our lives when we, don't know better or we need help. But the whole goal is for us to grow up and to mature and to become responsible for our own life, for our own self, responsible for the care of our own bodies, responsible for the care of our own minds, which is so important. The care of the mind is even more important than the care of the body. Why? Because it is the mind that informs the body. And the body is neutral, so the body takes its instructions from the mind. And so a mind that, like in my case, that had been developed in fear and guilt consciousness, sin consciousness, would take it would give off its instructions to the body and bring the body into subjection to those ideas that were not in my best interest. So now, again, 18 years later, it was in 1998 that I started my journey of transformation by taking responsibility for finding out what I needed to know about reality. That was in 98. And then it was in 2005 that I was introduced to the course. And that has been one of my sources of helping me to become aware of my true reality, and then to be the expression of that in the world, in my relationships, and to be the expression of that in the way I show up. And that's the path for all of us, really. Once we become adults, once we become of age, where we can make decisions on what we take in, on how we express ourselves, we have to take full responsibility for that. Otherwise, we'll grow up blaming everybody for our for our life. We'll blame the outside world, outside relationships, outside situations and conditions. We'll blame history and everything, every excuse we could come up with why we are having certain experiences in life, and not really taking full charge, full responsibility for our very own life. You are given the tools and the authority and the power to be your own savior. It's been given to you. It's been endowed into you by your creator. Like we said many times here, no one can take away your freedom to choose. No one can take away your freedom to think correctly. The body could be imprisoned. The body might be attacked, but the mind can't. The mind can't be imprisoned when it exercises its freedom. When you exercise your freedom and you desire to know the truth that is true always, no one can stop you. You don't even need a book. You don't need you don't need some type of device. All that you are is within your essential self. It's within your nature. You could be locked up in the deepest dungeon, in the coldest prison. You could be set out among the deepest forest, away from everyone and everything, without any external help. But if you would inquire of yourself, in tune within, and get in tune with yourself and with your inner self, the inner voice that is within you, that which was placed in you at your incarnation, the voice that speaks for truth, without any resource. All it takes is a little willingness on your part, my part, anyone's part, to want to know the self, to want to know the creator, to want to know why and what and when, and inquire of yourself. Those answers are there. without any assistance. So we don't really need books or things. Books are helpful. Knowledge is helpful. All the gifts that's been given to us, all the blessings, all the grace that God has extended through us, through that which has been handed down to us as the truth, they are good. But even without it, what I'm saying, you can come to know your true self. So it's not about a book or a path or a religion. It's not about any of the labels that this world places upon us. It's not about any of those things. It's about you being an infinite. It's about you being an impersonal. And it's about you being a self-aware being. That's what it's all about. No one can change that. Nothing can affect that. These are the realities that was here before the world was. And no activity, no thought or idea that is contrary to that can really change that. We can't even change that. We can choose not to recognize it, but it can't be changed. And when I say that which can be known about us being infinite and impersonal and self-aware, that endowment is a part of our nature, that we are infinite, meaning that there has never been a beginning and there will never be an end to who you are. You are conscious awareness. You always have been. You always will be. You are not a body. You are free. You remain as an aware, as an impersonal, and as an infinite being as God created you. That is who you are and what you are. It's one thing that you're absolutely sure of, and that is that you are aware that I am. If I ask you who you are, your immediate response would start with I am. Why is that? Because you are. You are what? I am aware. I am conscious. I am infinite. When you hear the word I am, that's what it means. That you're infinite. If you've never been told that, if you've never thought of yourself that way, it is the truth that is true always. You are an infinite being. You are. The same awareness, the same consciousness that all of us had when we were first born. The same awareness and the same consciousness that we had when we were 5 years old. The same consciousness and awareness that we had at 18. The same consciousness and awareness that you had at 40. It is the same consciousness and the same awareness. It's no different. It's always and will always be present with us. Why? Because we're infinite beings. And that's great news. We're not finite beings. In other words, there's never be an end to you. And some of the things I'm saying right now will help remove some of the fear out of your life, some of the fear out of your thinking. I know, I've been there. I was there. I thought I was a finite being. I thought I was a personal self. There was a time I thought I was a personal self, that all I was this personal identity, with this personal history that I was experiencing. And I knew that it was temporary. Why? Because everybody died. Everybody that has ever graced this planet, at some point it comes to an end. So that means that I didn't see myself as an infinite self. I saw myself as a finite self, that one day I'm coming to an end. And that made me sad. Yeah, it makes you sad. Hey, just like anything else in life. When you're having a good time, when the feelings are good, when there's just this grand peace and happiness and joy and laughter and relationships and it's all good. You don't want that event to come to an end. No, you want it to what? Be eternal. Well, likewise, all of us go through this period in our life when we begin to inquire about ourselves. And when we take that inquiry, and if our only point of view is that of a body self, a personal self, then we know that that comes to an end, and that will make you sad. In fact, it will bring grand depression. it will bring depression upon you to know that there's an end to you. It brings a great amount of fear and anxiety. I know, I had the experience. I know what I'm talking about. You know what I'm talking about. But when you come to know the reality of your true identity as an infinite, as a divine, when you come to know yourself as an impersonal being, meaning there's really no individual self. There's only the one being, the one self that we all share. So the being that we share is not personal to you, but it is impersonal. But it's not impersonal to you, but it's not personal to you, but it's impersonal to all of us. Why? Because we all share the one life that there is. There's not, in reality, there's not multiple lives. There's only the one life, and we share it. There's only the one God, and we share it. There's only the one eternity, and we share that. And when we come to know this, when we come to know thyself, like the ancient poet said, when we really come to know who we are as this infinite, impersonal, and self-aware being, and that it's only the one, and that we all share in that one, and that we're all connected, that we're all one. When we come now to change our perception and our paradigm, to change our point of view from that of separation to that of oneness, when we come to really know that and embrace it for ourselves, oh, how sweet it is to know that your nature is eternal. Oh, how sweet it is to know that in reality, we're not separate, we're not divided, but we're all one loving brotherhood. And when I said loving brotherhood, meaning that our nature, the nature of who we are is love. How sweet it is when we come to know that we have this self-awareness of this. It's not an awareness that we have to earn, or it's not an awareness that we have to find out outside of ourselves, but it is an awareness that is self-aware. We become aware. We are awareness becoming aware of ourselves. It's like the sun and the moon and the stars becoming aware of themselves. They've never seen themselves. All they know to do is to shine. But we are beyond the stars and the moon. We're beyond the sun. We're greater than that. We're much greater. And it is our nature to shine in this awareness of who we are. We're not only that, but we are aware of that. We are aware of who we are as we inquire as we do this self-inquiry, as we seek to answer the question, who am I? The question will be answered because you are self-aware. And it's one thing, and you know this, or maybe you don't. It's one thing to live being self-aware of reality. It's another thing to be living and not aware of your reality. It's two different things. One breathes love and joy and peace and abundance and happiness, to be self-aware of the truth of who you are. The other that seeks to look to find itself outside of itself in a world of separation, in a world of duality, through its relationships, sensations, activities, events, its culture, its physical identity, one that seeks to find itself, in its politics, or in the world of business, or in the arts or the sciences. It's one that looks to seek to find itself outside of itself. The results are different. One comes to experience what we call sin consciousness, guilt and fear, anxiety, suffering, pain. Why? Because our identity is not outside of ourselves. Our identity is in our self-awareness of who we are. It's nowhere else. That's where the Creator placed it, inside of your very own self. How in the world did I get on this conversation? I got on it because that is what is within me. I got on it because I think there's a need for us to hear. Because we're living in a world. I was just reading this morning. Where am I? Let me find something. Yeah, I was just reading this morning the headline news. I watch the news a little bit, not much. But I was reading the headline news. It says what? Ukraine war. So we live in a world where in 2022, we're still at war. Nations are warring against nations. Attacking their critical infrastructure. In other words, they're destroying their water supply. They're destroying their power supply. Now this is what I'm talking about here. It's the brotherhood of humanity that is infinite, impersonal, and self-aware. That's our reality. But when you're not aware of your reality, this is the activities that we engage in: war and fighting. Here's another headline: Russian warplane crashes into a residential apartment building, killing 13 and wounding countless others. When we're not aware of who we are, these are the kinds of activities that we engage in, because it's motivated by sin consciousness, guilt, and fear. Another headline: the polls show voters, this is in America, the USA. In America, it says polls, talking about voting polls. It says polls show voters see our democracy in peril. The democracy is in peril, but saving it isn't a priority. In other words, the people. There's a large part of the people in this country that don't want to make saving the democracy a priority. They want it to see destroyed. This is what happens when our perception is that of separation. This is what's happened when we don't know the self. We don't understand who we are. Here's another headline. I think it's Xi Jinping, who is the leader of China. It says Xi Jinping lays out a vision of fortress China against tense rivalry with the United States. Okay, again, nations against each other. And I'm not going to belabor this, but this is the final headline, and there's many more. It's just the ones I picked out. It says, man killed by subway train after falling during a fist fight. These two brothers now, fist fighting at a subway station in Queens, New York. And as a result of the fight, one falls and get killed during the fight. He got killed he got hit by a subway train. Another example, and I can go on and on about some of the conditions in this world. And these are not all the conditions in the world. There's good in the world. That's not what I'm saying. But what I am saying is there's a lot of good in the world, and it doesn't get publicized on the 6 o'clock news or the international news. Lots of good in the world. What we're doing here, this is good. What we're doing is engaging in improving our life, by improving our minds, by improving our awareness of who we are, so that we can be the shining light, the bright expression of the love that we are in the world to all humanity. So this is a good thing. I think so. And so what I'm saying is, these are the things that we replace. These are the things that we put in place instead of the love that we are when we don't know who we are. When we don't see ourselves as infinite, impersonal, and self-aware beings. This is what we substitute it with. We create a world that is not so loving. And so, that's why I say it's so important. To know thyself is the most important thing. It's the most important engagement that we can participate in. Because the world is only going to reflect back to us. Notice now, the world is just a reflection. The world is just a mirror. It's just a mirror of the state of our minds. Let me say that again, because I observed someone on yesterday that made a post in one of the groups that I'm in. And they made a post of an incident that happened recently, where there was a road rage between two cars, a road rage between two fathers driving two different cars. And they eventually stopped, and they both drew their guns and shot into each other's vehicle. Lo and behold, in each vehicle was their daughter, and each daughter was hit by the bullets. And this post was made within our group, and then one of the members said, "What is this world coming to? What is this world coming to?" He was like, "Wow, how crazy can it get? How wild can it be?" Well, it's going to become to the state of mind that we are, the collective state of mind, as well as the personal state of mind. And that's just a reflection of what's going on in the minds of those two individuals. It didn't have anything to do with the two girls, but that was in the minds of those two individuals who didn't seek a peaceful resolution because of their state of mind that obviously is motivated by fear and guilt and sin consciousness. So this world will only reflect back to us. When I say to us, humanity collectively, the world is going to reflect back to us what's in our minds. So what we see in the world, it's just the effect of what's in the mind of humanity. It's the state of mind. It's the state of mind is that of separation. Is the state of mind is that of division. It's the state of mind is that of believing in a personal self. Is that which believing in a what? A finite self. Do we live in a global community or whatever community where the main outlook or the main perception is that of a personal self? That leads to destruction. It leads to destruction. And it will mirror that back to us. But when we live in a world where the point of view is that of an infinite, impersonal, and self-aware being that we all share, if that is the collective mindset, then the world would reflect that back to us, because in the nature of that mindset is love, joy, peace, happiness. And so that will be our collective experience. But it has to start in the hearts of humanity, one person at a time. That's why we're created this platform. We saw the need for humanity to wake up to the truth of who they are. So that individuals are not destroyed by their own ignorance, so that families have a chance to love one another, so that communities can be at peace. So our generation of young people can have some type of guidance, some type of core values that they are learning based on this reality of being infinite and impersonal and self-aware, where there's not infinity, where there's not oneness. In other words, impersonal, where there's not oneness, and where there's not an awareness of the nature of love that we are. We create societies, families, individuals, countries, nations that are at war with one another. Why? Because the idea that comes out of that thought system, the idea that comes out of that perception is kill or be killed. And we see it happening. So that's why we're here. That's why we started this journey. There was a group of individuals that say, hey, there's something here that we don't know. That if we knew it, we would be better. If we knew it, we could extend this goodness, at least in our sphere of influence. And that's why we're here. And so part one of the workbook lessons in A Course in Miracles has to do what we've done up until this point. All of the lessons had to do with aiding us with undoing the way that we see, or the way that we saw when we started the first workbook lesson. And so the workbook lesson is divided into two main sections, part one and part two. The first is dealing with the undoing of the way that we see now. And so back in January 10th, back on January 10th of this year when we started this journey, we saw a certain way. We thought a certain way. And we learned, we first came to understand that the way we see was based on the way we think. And that so the thinking is the source of our seeing. And so if we're seeing in a way that's incorrect, then it needed to be what? It needed to be corrected. There needed to be a shift in our thinking, shift in our perception. And ultimately there will be a shift in our what experience, what we result, a shift in our result, a shift in what we think, a shift in the way we perceive. So therefore our actions would change, or would be different. They would be different. And so we all realized at the beginning of this project that, a lot of our thinking was conditioned thinking. A lot of our thinking, or most of our thinking, had to do with our past experiences. That we weren't really thinking. We were just regurgitating what we have been conditioned, or what we have learned, even though what we have been conditioned with or what we have learned may not been in our best interest. It may have been self-sabotaging. It may have been based on that which is not real or not true about who we are or who God is or what the world is about. And we discovered a lot of these at the very beginning. That a lot of the traditions, a lot of our traditional thinking, a lot of our understanding was based on a lie. It wasn't based on truth. It was based on darkness. And so as we started with workbook lesson 1, because remember, when we started this, we were informed by the course that life is lived through the mind. Our life is basically lived through the mind. It is our mind that connects us with our divine self. It is our mind that has access to that false self. But we are the decision maker in determining who we're listening to, what we're listening to. We are the determination. We are the decision maker of how we see. We are the decision maker of how we decide to act. And so the results that we see are coming directly from us. And so when we realize this, the course says that an untrained mind can accomplish nothing. A mind that is not trained, or a mind that is not disciplined to the truth, it can accomplish anything as far as the truth. A mind that is not, is a mind that is not trained to walk in the light. It will by its own propensity, it will walk in darkness. So it said, so we were instructed that the purpose of this workbook lessons, this course, the purpose of us taking this course, that's why it's called A Course in Miracles. It is not a replacement for other religion. This is not a religion. This is a correction process that we're involved in here. The one thing that we probably need less of is more religions and more religion. We don't need more of that. We need to find the truth. We need to not only find the truth, but we need to be it. Why? Because we're the saviors of this world. We're the God of this world. And the world is going in the direction of the thinking of humanity collectively. And we have so much history, almost 3,000 years of history that's recorded. But humanity have, out of its own ignorance, walked into the edge of destruction and extinction. And it was until some individual or some groups, some collective group, never the majority, but some collective group would stand up and be the light. And say, if we don't change our course, if we don't shift our ways, if we don't consider what we're doing, we won't be here. And history, what changed its course. We're at an inflection point right now where if we don't change our course based on, just listen to the conversation going on between countries right now. All these what exercises to, you know, military activity, on the level of nuclear activity. That's craziness. That is crazy. So if some group of some consciousness is not raised to say, hey, listen, you guys, this is not who we are. We're not separate beings. We're not finite beings. We're not unaware beings, but we're self-aware beings. We are the brotherhood of the one creator, loving God that we all share. Let's not be insane here. Lay down your ego thinking. It's not even in your best interest. What are you doing? Someone has to stand up and say this. And so the purpose of this course that we've taken, called A Course in Miracles, and we're doing the workbook lessons, it has been to train our minds to think along the lines of that which is true about us, that which is true about our loving creator and all living things. That's the purpose for us going through these. This is not a religious offering here. This is not a competition with any other religious path. No, this is an exercise in correction, because we have come to understand that it is the state of mind that is the problem. In your own life, it's been your thinking that has gotten you in a good place, or it's been your thinking that has gotten you in a bad place. It has nothing to do with anything external to you. It had to do with your thinking. Not to say how you got to that point of thinking. We know that there's many different influences. But we have to embrace the reality that it is our thinking. What we think about, we will bring about. There's nothing that has entered into your life, my life, or anyone's life that did not come through the portal of our thinking. It first started in the realm of thought. It first started in the realm of ideas that arose within our consciousness. And we made decisions whether to accept or reject them. But what was our point of view? What was our basis for exception or rejection? Was it the truth of our oneness, or was it the falsity of our individuality? Was it the falsity of our division and separation? Was it the falsity of our guilt? What was the point of view? And so these workbook lessons have been embarked upon to train us to think along the lines of that which is true. Well, how can we think along the line of that which is true and that which is real, unless we know how to distinguish between the two? And the Course helps us with that. The basis of A Course in Miracles has to do with being able to distinguish that reality from unreality, the real from the unreal. And we made that acknowledgement several times during these 200 plus days that we've been engaging in these lessons. We said that reality has to do with that which is real. The basis of the course says that which is real cannot be threatened. In other words, God can't be threatened. Love can't be threatened. Heaven can't be threatened. Reality is that which cannot be threatened. That means it's not threatened about anything. Why? Because it's reality. It can't be threatened by unreality. So that which is real, it cannot be threatened. So anything that can be threatened, that means what? It's not real. If you have a threatening thought, that means it's not real. The thought's not real. It's just arising within your awareness. And you're making a choice about it. And so you react based on what? Your perception. If you think it's real, guess what? You'll act upon that. If you think that an unloving thought is not real, guess what? And you won't act upon it. Why? Because that which is real cannot be threatened. So ultimately, in reality, God is not threatened. God's not threatened about anything that happens on the earth. Why? Because it's not real. If it's not loving. Meaning what? It's temporary. It's subject to change. And it has what? It has a beginning and an end. It's temporary. So that which is permanent is not threatened by that which is temporary. That which is permanent is not threatened by that which is temporary. So God is not threatened by the Son getting an idea that maybe he could separate himself from his father. The father's not threatened by that. God's not threatened by that. We see that in the story of the prodigal son. When the son came to the father and said, "Hey, I'd like to have my inheritance," the father didn't hesitate giving the son his inheritance. He said, "Here, go." Why? The father knew what? That's only temporary. He'll be back. Why? Because there's only one reality. So God is not threatened by us making a world of separation, creating millions and millions of bodies that appear to be separate, building buildings, creating systems that's based on separation, creating races of people, religions, businesses, all kinds of things that appear to be separate and divided, as though oneness doesn't exist. God's not threatened by that. He said, "Go ahead." He knew we would make a mess of it. Why? Because it's not real. So that which is real is not threatened. And if you don't know that, you'll be threatened by everything. You'll fear that you're under attack. So you're always on the defense. And that's what's happening on the international scale. These nations fear that they're under attack. They're fearful. These acts of wars is acts of fear. They fear. They fear what is not real. And that which is real. I think I'm getting a little excited here. What do you think? I'm only here to be helpful. I'm not here to be comical. I get the comments, "Oliver, why you grin as though you're laughing at something?" Listen, when you know the truth, you learn to grin at the what? That which is not. There's no need to bawling and squalling and crying. No, you grin at it because you know what? It's only a matter of what? Time. It's going to run its course. It's only a matter of time. You guys know this. It's only a matter of time. If you're not walking in the light, it's going to be exposed. You know it. And we're seeing it happen on every level. That which is in the dark is coming to the light. Jesus said it. We all live in a lighthouse. There is no secrets. There is no secret thoughts. There is no secret ideas. There are no secret pleasures. that which we think we're hiding from one another is not hidden. Everything is in the light. When will we come to embrace that reality? When you walk in the light, you walk in peace, you walk in joy, you walk in happiness, you walk in all the pleasures of life. But when we walk in darkness, darkness means it means what? When we walk in not having the knowledge of who we are. That's what darkness is. To not know who you are. To not know that you are infinite. To not know that you are what? That you are what? Impersonal. Meaning that you share a oneness with everyone. To not know that you are self-conscious, self-aware. It's to walk in darkness. And in the darkness, it is fear. In darkness, there's anguish. In darkness, there's a sense of aloneness. There's a sense of isolation. We see it happening. And people isolate themselves, thinking that that is the answer. And it's not the answer. You're doubling down on the problem. You're not separate and alone. No, but you're joined in this oneness that we share, which is your very life. So we cut off our very life when we isolate ourselves. It's not the answer. It is what? It is an indication that we're doubling down on the ego thought system. That means that we're holding unforgiving thoughts, not only about ourselves, but about others. See, all this is happening in our minds. You'll never fix it out here in the world. You can never fix it. Why? Because the world is not real. It's just a reflection of what's in our minds. So it's the mind that needs to be healed. You want healing? You want true health care? You want true raising of our standard of healthy living and well-being? Get humanity to begin to work on the mind, to do the corrective work on the mind, which is what we're doing. And you will see this avalanche of raised and heightened well-being among the populace. And you won't need all of the medical hospitals and all this stuff, right? But we don't want that. See, certain businesses, certain industries don't want that. They want us to remain on this upward growth of being sick and needy, so that what? They can pad their pockets. They want you in the system. They want you in the system so that your body can become what? A point of experimentation. I don't sound like I'm fussing, do we? My wife says sometimes I sound like I'm fussing. I'm not fussing. Listen, I just want us to wake up. I know I've been there. We should be the happiest being on the planet. We should be the happiest beings on the planet. Why? Because we have everything. We are everything. God has given unto us the abundance of grace and the gift of righteousness, meaning we are the right. And we have the right to be happy. We are the right, and we have the right to be joyous, to be healthy, to be wealthy, to be plentiful, to be expansive, with no exception. All humanity, no exception. It's our right. It's our birthright. But we want to play church. It is time to quit playing. It is time to get real with who we are. It's time to lay down all these images of ourselves that are so antithetical to who we really are. So the aim of the course is that we need to know how to distinguish the real between the unreal, and to know that what is reality is something that you learn, but it's something that you know. It is the knowing of the self. It is why we say it called self-awareness. You can know yourself. Ask yourself, can a knife know itself? Can a book know itself? No, but you can. And you know yourself. We just have forgotten ourselves. We've forgotten who we are. We came here in this seemingly individuated body self, and we forgot who we are. So we're on a journey of remembering who we are. Reality is truth. And it's the truth that is true always, that is unchangeable, it's unalterable. Who you are is unchangeable. You're unalterable. You are the infinite. You are the self aware. You are the impersonal. You are the one that shares your oneness with all humanity and with God Himself, herself, itself. It's like our minds at some point entertain this tiny mad idea that there's something outside of our reality, and there's nothing. And so we fell asleep and dreamed of leaving a place where we can never leave. Why? It's the only reality. We fell asleep and dreamed of being separate from one another. And it's impossible. Why? There's only the one. We dreamed of making a world and making a home that is different and is separate from our true home. And it's impossible. We did this. And the good news is what? We are the only one that can undo this. That's why we're going through these lessons. It says an untrained mind cannot accomplish anything in terms of the truth. And that the first part of these lessons that we've gone through, it was all about undoing the way that we saw, undoing our perception, undoing the way that we've been trained for years that has been handed down to us, undoing the ego thought system of separation, of guilt and sin consciousness. We spent a half a year in the process of undoing the way we were thinking. Why? Because it was the source of the problem. So that's what the first 100, 220 lessons were about. And now we're getting ready to cross over to part 2, where we'll spend the next half of the year in acquisition of what we call true perception, an acquisition of what we call the mind of Christ, an acquisition of seeing from God's point of view, from the point of view of reality. That's what we're going to spend the next half of the year, half of this training, doing. Now that we have what? Now that we have unhitched ourselves from being conformed to this world's way of thinking and being. And now that we are transforming, being transformed by the renewing of our minds so that we can prove what is that good and what is that what? Acceptable and perfect will of our Father and of humanity. It can't be proven until we what? until we lay down all of our allegiance to the lie, the big lie. In today's world, this idea of there's a big lie going on, right? People promoting the big lie. That ain't really the big lie. The biggest lie is our belief in our false self. The biggest lie is our belief in separation. The biggest lie is our belief that we can create something that is better than what reality is, and we can't do it. We've been trying it for centuries, for eons. It doesn't. We make a mess, just like the prodigal son. We end up in a pig pen. But the good news is what? Sometime in that pig pen, just like the prodigal son, we come to know ourselves. We come to ourselves and say, what? I will go back home. And that's what God is calling us to do. That's what reality is urging us. That's what that voice that speaks for God that's inside of you to say, that's telling you to forgive, to let go. That's what he's telling you. Prodigal son, come back home. That's what he's saying to all of us. The condition of the world is telling us, come to yourself and come back home. Come back to love. Wake up from the dream of hatred and bitterness and separation and prejudice and superiority. Wake up from the dream of greed. Wake up from the dream of self-destruction. Wake up from the nightmare. The boogeyman is not real. The lie is not real. The fact that Humpty Dumpty fell off the wall and broke into billions and billions of pieces, billions and billions of bodies and beings, and it can't be put back together again. That is a nightmare. It's not reality. It's not the truth. The truth is, God is. Therefore we are. And there's nothing else. The truth is, heaven has not been affected at all by our foolishness. The truth is, God in his love, God in his infinite wisdom, when he could swear by no greater, he swore by himself that all humanity will eventually wake up from the nightmare and realize that it was in a dream. It was on a journey without a distance. And we haven't done anything. We haven't done anything to affect reality. It's still intact. We haven't done anything to change our true identity. It's still intact. And that the fear and the anguish and the pain and the suffering that we seemingly experience in this dream-like state that we're in, it all eventually will disappear into the nothingness that it is. And what we're saying today, by giving ourselves over to what's been made available to us, is that you don't have to wait. You don't have to wait. This is not something at the end of your life. This is not something at the end of your body life. This is something that is always present. This, what you are, who you are, the presence of this love is everywhere and always. The awareness and the consciousness of our oneness with all creation is always present. It's always shining. Life is always shining. Who you really are is always shining. You don't have to wait. You just have to wake up. I had to wake up. And now that we are, those of us who walked in this oneness, we're not special. We're not different. But we have a responsibility to share this oneness, to share this love, to share through forgiveness so that all of the family can stand and come alive and walk away from the dream of separation. And that's why we're here. Not only in our personal lives, but in every area of our life. We ought to be the light of the world. We ought to demonstrate love, not hatred, not division. We're not to promote this stuff that the world is promoting and then call ourselves knowing God. There's no way. There's no way. There's no way. God is love. God's not hate and separation and division. But if we're really awake, we realize our responsibility, our function as the light of the world. As Jesus said, ye are the light of the world. We understand our function as forgiveness, that we forgive wholeheartedly, without exception. Otherwise, we don't know who we are. Well, look, I'm going to have to stop because I don't operate in time sometimes. Time is an illusion too. But I'm going to start right there, but I'm not finished. I'm going to come back and finish this transitional message that I've started, moving us from part 1 to part 2. I think it's important as we make this shift, as we prepare ourselves for the final haul of this journey that we're on, a journey of transformation. I think it's required. I think it's necessary. I think it's important. And I think that it's necessary and important too. No one in their right mind would hurt themselves. No one who is thinking sanely would punish themselves. No one who is aware would knowingly inflict pain and punishment and suffering to themselves. No one would do it. But we all been guilty. Some of it has come out of our ignorance of not knowing, and some of it has come out of our insane determination to know and to not to do, to double down. But truly, foundation is here as a beacon of light, is here as a communication device to awake our consciousness to the truth. We're here to advance us in our spiritual awareness so that we can be the loving, happiness, infinite, self-aware beings that we are, that the one being that we are and that we all share. That's why we're here. So thank you so much. We'll be back on tomorrow for continual conversation along this line before we get started on workbook lesson 220, 222. 221 will be our first one in part 2. But before we get there, we have to establish some things, and I'm going to do it. Thank you so much. I love you so much. Oh my God. I love you so much. God said, how can you love me who you can't see? And you don't love your brother who you can see. I understand why Jesus said that. How can you say you love? How you say I love God who you can't see and can't love the brother that you do? Take from the brother. How can you take from your brother? How can you destroy your brother? How can you kill, steal, and destroy your brother who you do know, who you do see, can feel and touch? And you say, but I love God. It's impossible. It's impossible. Why? Because your brother is God. Jesus said it. He says, as much as you did this to them, you're doing it to me. Why? Because Jesus understands we're one. As much as you do it to your neighbor, you're doing it to God. What are you doing to your neighbor? You see what we've done here? And we've done it in the name of God. And it's running wild in politics right now. But we say, oh, we're doing the will of God. No, you're not. What's in the heart is coming to surface. And it needs to be what? It needs to be healed. This false identity that has its nature in fear, it shows up in hatred and in prejudice and in superiority. It needs to be healed. That's why it's coming to the surface. That's why when you awake, you're not threatened about any of this. I'm not threatened about any of these things that are going on in the world. Why? It's got to come to the surface. That's the only way it can get healed. That's why you see what's happening in the heart of men. It's coming to the surface. People that are doing things that you never thought they would do or say. They're doing it instead. Why? Because it's coming to the surface to be healed. So don't be alarmed. Don't be afraid. It has to happen. The darkness has to dissipate. And the same mind that it came in through, it has to go out, that same mind. And we see it, and it's ugly when it comes out. It goes in secret, but it is ugly when it comes out. And that's why we've seen some of the things we've seen, even in this nation, the United States. Because it's ugly coming out. What's coming out? What's in the heart? Jesus said, out of the abundance of the heart, the mouth speak it. And if the mouth speak it, then it comes into action. So what the craziness that has been seen over the last 10 years or so, it's been that way because it's coming out. There is a collection of humanity. There's never been as many people awake on the planet as there are right now. People that are holding the light. People that are holding the light of the reality of who we are on the planet. Never been this many at one time. So that collective light is creating all of this rumbling to come to surface. Why? So it can be healed. So be not dismayed. That's why Jesus said, all these things shall come to pass. Wars, earthquakes, these weather patterns, humanity fighting and killing and fussing with one another. This generation of waywardness, all of this, it was already spoken to us in prophetic word that it would happen. Why? So you wouldn't be excited. It's all good. It's all working towards God's reality. It's all working towards the awakening of all humanity. So be not afraid. Fear not. That's what he said. Jesus said, fear not. These things must happen. It's not that God is making this happen. It's not God is punishing anyone. God is love. Love doesn't punish. No, this is what we have created our own self. When I say we, all humanity. We've done it to ourselves. Remember, that which is real is not threatened. So these things must happen. The ugliness that you see, it must happen. And it's coming to surface so that it can be healed. This whole course is based on bringing the error and the mistakes of humanity to the truth. And that it is displayed in what we're seeing. When we see the ugliness, when we see what we call, this is unprecedented, it's just letting you know what is in the mind of humanity. As I started this talk, this world will reflect back to us what's in the mind. And if the mind is to be healed, if the earth is to ever to be released from the imprisonment that we have put it under, these things must come to surface so that they may be healed. And so what we're saying here is that as humanity wakes up one by one, as individuals lay down their, what in the Old Testament it said, lay down your plowshares, lay down your weapons. As humanity begin to see who they really are and see the error and the mistakes of their ways, and lay down their weapons, lay down their anger, lay down their discontent, lay down their unforgiveness, lay down their racism, lay down their idea of superiority, lay down their idea of nationalism and all these things that are seeming to arise when we decide to lay them aside. All that's going to be left is love. Just like one day, you're going to lay your body aside. Who are you without your body? You ever thought about that? Who are you without the body? You are love. I'm not saying that the body is an unloving thing. I'm saying the body is neutral. It's just going to do what the mind says. Who are you without your thoughts, your ideas? Who are you if you become this empty vessel? Who are you if you lay aside this course, lay aside your religion, lay aside your allegiance to everyone and everything, and come before your God with empty hands? Who are you? That's a good place to stop. Who are you? We'll get more into that tomorrow. Thank you so much. Oliver Blue, your temporary guide, temporary coach. I am your brother that loves you. See you on tomorrow. Have a great day. Bye-bye.